Shalom and welcome. I was thinking this morning about Douglas Adams' book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I couldn't remember how long ago it was written, or if indeed if I'd read it. I'm sure I did, but it must have been a long, long time ago. I don't really remember too much about it, but I do remember something that there was a number, kind of a magic number, I think, which would explain life, the universe, and everything. And I thought, well, that works. What a wonderful thing that would be. You know, if we could find it and make it work, then we could live a life of peace and there wouldn't be any need for all these videos and I could retire and live a happy life. So I checked it out on the internet, I think Wikipedia and somewhere else, and the number was 42. Douglas Adams said that he was just sitting at his typewriter and he had the idea of coming up with this number and he just typed 42. It's nothing, it doesn't mean anything, it was meant as a joke. But it's amazing how many people have come up with all sorts of things. I mean, conspiracy theories and stuff they've put together about this number 42. And I thought how dangerous that can be. You know, how we can make all sorts of things to suit ourselves. The algorithms in the social media that we use will put us together with people that think the same way that we do. And so we never really get a balanced view if we stick to that. And how we can come up with all these things, which is why when we're talking about morals and ethics and how we should live and life lessons, it is safer to stick to Torah. 3,000 years of wisdom handed down through the generations. We know that the Torah was given to Moshe, and as we move into celebrating Shavuot this week, it celebrates that, the giving of the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. Moses handed it on to Joshua to the elders or the judges, the elders to the prophets to the men of the great assembly, and then we have just centuries of scribes and sages and rabbis that have added to this. And they do go through in the Gemara. There are lots of different arguments and different ideas and different positions on different subjects. And so it's not just one subject to suit all that we all have to agree with. We get a bit of a choice, and the harmonizing of all those views can come from Torah. No matter how long it takes, we need to seek that harmony. And so I just thought I'd mention that because the Baal Shem Tov said, doesn't it, that we need to retrieve from the sensory experience of this world. And, you know, just transcending its allure and arresting demand for our attention. And it does make so much demands on our attention, and we rely on Google and Wikipedia and things, and it's not always a balanced view. So bearing that in mind, I wanted to retreat a little to where we were last time and talk a little more about Yetzer Hara, the inclination to do evil. And of course, it gets lots of attention. The Yetzer Tov is balancing act. The intention of the inclination to do good doesn't get so much of a mention. It's like the newspapers and news. We don't necessarily like to hear or read about good things. They don't make money, and so they don't make it into the media. But we love a little bit of drama and when other people are doing evil, as long as it's not to us. And so I wanted to balance that out a little bit. Yetzer Hara in Hasidic philosophy is described as an external influence, and its energy comes from not the God-fearing nations, but the God-denying nations, those that are opposed to God. And I suppose by inference too, that could be ungodly people living in otherwise godly countries. And so if we look around the world, we can see that the Yetzer Hara is never ever going to be short of fuel. Not until Mashiach comes, maybe. Yetzer Tov, on the other hand, it comes from our own intellect. It comes from studying Torah specifically, and that gives us ample information on how to live a moral and ethical life. And it also encourages us to be able to share that with other people, to live that life, experience it. It's so much more powerful when others, nations, can see that we are living that because it's a practical example. It's not that up in the clouds or something, it's actually happening. That's part of the deal, isn't it? That we're supposed to be a light to the nations. And so we have this Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Tov is described as an internal battle and likened in the analogy of the two kings. One wants to attack the other kingdom and impose his will and taxes and his thought patterns on the other nation. And it's the same with the Yetzer Hara. And if we looked at it at the way it is, it seems that that will always win, although it is difficult, and it's described in the Mishnah that he who can control or conquer his Yetzer Hara is greater than he who conquers a city. It has to be done, and it can be done. It's done through study, from training our intellect to control our emotions, and we can overcome this inclination to do evil. And if we can do that and live it, we're going to start to affect the rest of the world, and they can learn from us that, well, you know what, it's not all negative stuff. This can be done. And I think it get raised up too much. Maybe we talk too much about it in that sort of this fancy language of spirituality. So I wanted today to give us a little practical example of how this works or how it can influence our lives today. It's not a great war between two kingdoms, but just a practical thing. It's a little story. I think Freud picked up on something like this. He called it id and ego and superego. I'm not going to call them those, but it's that kind of story. And what you need to do is just place yourself inside the story. Pretend it's you. See how far you get, and be honest with yourself and see what your reaction would be. So we are walking down a street in an upmarket area of London, or it could be New York or Paris or Berlin, wherever you want. And it's full of clothes shops, rather fancy, posh clothes shops. And you look across the road and there's a jacket in the window of one of the men's outfitters. And it's one that you've seen before and you've always wanted it. And the emotions well up and you just desire it. You want it. You deserve it. You've got to have it. And then the intellect sneaks in and it says, well, let me go and have a look, because what I need to do first is to find out how much it costs. Can't just want the thing. We need some knowledge to be added to our emotional outburst and see if we can afford it. And so we look through the window and it's got a price tag on it of £200. So the next thing is obviously get the wallet out and search through there and shake the cobwebs, and you look through it and you've got £4.20. Now the emotions, the Yetzer Hara will say, well, we'll steal it. You want it so badly, you desire it, you deserve it, you must have it. Then the intellect comes in and it says, well, we're not supposed to steal. Yeah, but if we can get away with it, maybe. But there's CCTV cameras. Maybe the shopkeeper's not a little old octogenarian. Maybe he's a youngster twice the size of us. It's going to cause some grief. For £200, we're probably going to get caught. We're probably going to get a sentence. Maybe it's only a few months, but a criminal record. It's not worth it. So with our shoulders drooping, we turn around and walk off down the street, feeling quite sad because, hey, we can't get the jacket. But then out of the corner of our eye and the side of the road, we see something which is brown and looks very much like a wallet. And in fact it is. So we look up, we look down, we look left, we look right, we look behind us. I'm not too sure why we do that, actually. There must be some internal thing of guilt, because somewhere, although the intellect hasn't told us yet, the emotions, the Yetzer Hara, have already come to a decision that they're going to steal this thing, or, they're not going to hand it in, they're going to take whatever's in it. And we don't want to be seen doing that. So we look around and there's nobody staring at us, and so we pick the wallet up and we open the wallet, and in there is a business card with a name on it and an address, a couple of credit cards and a wad of money. And we pull the money out and we count it, and you can guess how much is there. It's £200. We can now buy the jacket. Nobody's seen us. I mean, who's going to know? We can rationalise it and say, well, the guy was too careless, he lost it. Ah, how careless is that silly? He deserves not to have his money back. We'll have to destroy the wallet afterwards, I suppose. I don't know if we go as far as wiping it clean of fingerprints and things, but if we take the money and sling it in a bin, who's ever going to know we can get away with this? But there's a business card in there with a name and address. And we know that it's not right. And I suppose it's not stealing as such, although it's not our money. But we've read the Torah, we know. And it's that bit that we remember so well, is that don't do unto others what you don't want done unto yourself. And just for a moment, that flickers through our consciousness. We think, what if it was my wallet? Would I want somebody to return it? Well, you bet I would. And so we take the address and we go to the address that's shown on the business card and we hand it over. And the guy says, thank you very much. Doesn't give us anything, not even a cup of tea, but he's very grateful. And we turn around and walk away. How are you feeling? You're feeling good because you've done a mitzvah, that you've handed back something which is not yours and you've made somebody's life a little better for the day? Or are you feeling a little bit fed up because you thought he might at least give you a tenner or a cup of tea, or I mean, the right feeling after all that is really to say, well, we didn't do it for the reward. We didn't do it for a tenner or a cup of tea. We did it because it is the right thing to do. And yes, maybe if we'd have lost our wallet and somebody had had it, we might have given them something. But, we shouldn't do these things just because we think there's a reward. I'm not going to tell you where I fit in that story because, quite honestly, I'm not sure. I know the answer is not 42, but it does show you practically the problems that we have and this internal battle to do the right thing, to live moral and ethical lives. But I think you can see that it is possible, not for the reward, but just for the gratitude that we feel towards ourselves that we've done something which is right. Until next time, remember to return the wallets that you find, if you find any. Shalom.